All right, we're about to tackle one of the Mount Everests of philosophy, Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit. It has this legendary reputation for being almost impossible to read, but it's also a book that completely reshaped the modern world. So, what's it really all about? Well, in this explainer, we're going to climb that mountain together and find out. So, our story doesn't start in some quiet, dusty library. It starts on a battlefield. The year is 1806 in the German city of Jena, and Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel is frantically trying to put the finishing touches on his manuscript as the cannons of Napoleon's army are literally roaring in the distance. And this isn't just some background noise, It's the very stage on which his whole philosophy is about to come to life. And then, this incredible moment happens. Just before the battle, Hegel steps outside and he sees Napoleon Bonaparte himself riding through the city. Now, for Hegel, this wasn't just some general on a horse. No, for Hegel, this was something else entirely. It was a collision of history and ideas made real right in front of his eyes. He wrote these words in a letter to a friend, and you can just feel the awe. In Napoleon, Hegel saw what he called the world's soul, an individual who somehow embodied the entire driving force of history at that moment. And that right there, that's our first huge clue to the epic, world historical scale of his thinking. He's not just fiddling with abstract concepts, he's trying to grasp how consciousness itself unfolds through the grand drama of history. So that crazy moment on the battlefield, it gives us the scale of Hegel's thinking. But what was he actually trying to build in the book itself? Well, he actually gave us a pretty powerful metaphor to help us out. Hegel called his book a ladder. The idea is that you, the reader, can climb this ladder rung by rung. And in doing so, you're basically reenacting the entire historical journey of what he called spirit. Think of it as the collective consciousness of humanity, as it struggles and grows toward real self-knowledge. It's almost like an instruction manual for understanding itself. The main character of the story is just consciousness, and we follow it as it starts out at the most basic level possible, just raw, immediate sense experience, and then moves through these increasingly complex stages. This journey includes that super famous mastery and servitude section, where he digs into how our very sense of self gets forged through conflict with other people. Each stage you see here is a monumental leap on that journey, and it's all leading to one place, the summit, which he calls absolute knowing. Okay, so we know the path up the ladder, but what's actually pushing consciousness from one step to the next? I mean, how does it move? This is where Hegel's method gets, really, really unique. Right, this is the key. For most philosophers before Hegel, if your idea about the world was wrong, you change your idea, right? Simple. But for Hegel, the problem goes way deeper, and he flips the whole thing right on its head. And this is the absolute key to everything. The old way of thinking says, if your knowledge doesn't match the object, you fix your knowledge. Makes sense. But Hegel's big reversal is this. When there's a mismatch, a contradiction, consciousness has an aha moment. It realizes that the object out there isn't just a separate thing, it's also being shaped by the very way we try to understand it. So to solve the puzzle, both have to change, our knowledge and our very conception of the object. So you see, for Hegel, a contradiction isn't a mistake or a dead end. It's actually the engine of progress. It's the birthplace of a new, more sophisticated way of seeing the world. And this process just keeps repeating, pushing consciousness higher and higher up that ladder. All right, it's time for a quick but super important myth-busting moment. You've probably heard Hegel's name thrown around with thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right? Well, quick fact check. As the great scholar Walter Kaufmann points out, that simple little formula, you won't find it anywhere in the phenomenology. The real process is way messier, way more alive and organic than that neat little triangle. So, look, even with this map of the ladder, let's be real for a second. Trying to read this book can feel chaotic. And there's a very good reason for that. It's not just you, I promise. Even the experts will tell you this book is one wild ride. I love this quote because it just nails the feeling of reading the book. If you've ever picked it up, you know what this means. Sometimes it feels like Hegel is just jumping from one idea to the next just because he thought it would be interesting. But this seeming chaos, it's also why there are so many different and honestly fascinating ways to understand what he was up to. So what is this thing? Is it like a coming-of-age story but for the entire human spirit? Is it a big debate between all the major ideas in history? The foundation for some even grander system of science? Or maybe just a way for society to look in the mirror and understand itself? The crazy part is, the answer seems to be, yeah, kind of all of the above. And that's what makes it so rich. And, there's a really simple, very human reason for why it can feel so disjointed. Hegel was writing this thing under insane pressure. I mean, Napoleon's army's practically at his doorstep, and he's literally mailing off chapters to his publisher as soon as he finishes them. He had zero chance to go back and edit it all into a perfect, neat package. It was written on the fly under just incredible strain. Okay, so it's difficult. It was written in chaos. And yet, the Phenomenology went on to have this absolutely massive and, frankly, deeply contradictory impact on the entire world. Just look at this list. This one single book has been both praised and blamed for sparking some of the most powerful movements of modern times: existentialism, communism, even fascism, death of God theology, nihilism. I mean, just think about that for a second. How can one book be the intellectual seed for so many radically different, totally opposing ideas? It just shows you how potent and, yeah, how explosive the ideas packed inside this thing really are. And it all came from this physical object, a book published more than 200 years ago. It's just an amazing testament to the power of an idea, that one single text could unleash so many forces that would go on to shape and shake our world. So, after all that climbing, where do we end up? At the very top of the ladder, in a state Hegel calls absolute knowing. And this is the summit. This is the moment where spirit, or consciousness, finally stops seeing the world as some separate alien thing that it needs to figure out. Instead, it has this profound realization that the world, with all of its history, its art, its science, is the story of spirit itself unfolding. It's kind of like a novelist who suddenly realizes they're not just a character in the story, they're the one writing it. And that brings us to the final and, frankly, mind-bending question that really gets to the core of Hegel's whole project. What if the entire story of the universe, all of our history, all our science, art, and religion, what if it's all just one grand process, the universe, through us, becoming self-aware? That's the absolutely massive idea Hegel leaves us to chew on.